If there is a message for us today, I believe it is to learn to live from our heart in love. These short lessons, hopefully, will help to inspire you to live with purpose, love passionately, and inspire others. We are the change agent our world needs. I'm Helen Toews. Step into the river today with me to explore the mysteries of God. They are not hidden from us, but for us to discover. All right. Well, for those of you who are just coming on, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are in good form here with the Hollywood Squares. I am so delighted to see everybody tonight, really. Those of you who are going to Hawaii and coming back, I am a little jealous. I think it would be quite wonderful, actually, to have time to do that. It would be. I've been a couple of times, and I have great affection. I keep wondering if maybe there's Hawaiian blood in me or something, but. It's such a beautiful, beautiful place, eh? And I haven't been to any of the other, Polynesian countries, or I've been to Southeast Asia, to a number of countries, but I don't know, there's something about those islands. Anyway, tonight, welcome. And as you know, we've had two meetings talking about a grid, about our grids. This is week 3 on it. And the reason I decided to put in this final, it became a series, I don't know how, but I feel it's really important that we understand how, like last week we talked about how to build a grid, like a perceptual grid, and do it intentionally. I spent the week going in and out of, we had a lot of extra stuff this week, but as I was thinking about, this particular series, I realized how I personally have been with learning stuff, get very, very interested in things that are going on. And people send me stuff all the time. I don't have time to watch a lot, but if I like interesting things. I like to be up to date. I don't think I am very up to date now, but I sometimes get sent these things that are talking about things like, what do you believe with the aliens, and what's happening dimensionally, all the things that we talk about. I have no trouble with them, with any of those subjects, and I'm interested in listening, especially to people now that are being released from government positions that really have firsthand information on things, and I find it fascinating. Don't have as much time to read about those things as I used to, but as I listen to them, and I find myself, because I have a lot of interests, and but I keep coming back to me. And it's not about me in a narcissistic way, but I keep thinking, I don't want to move into other things that take me away from my focus on intimacy right now with God, and about learning that I am who I am, about learning how our whole quantum world works, and that, and even that is information. And I'm challenging myself to say, okay, at some point, I'm going to have to stay with things until I really get it. It's one thing to say, to think about the passage where Jesus said, "These things and greater shall you do," and we move in and out of that subject, and you think, yeah, that's true. And then I spend next week talking about, or looking to the skies or UFOs or something like that, and then I get diverted from keeping the main thing, because I want to get to a place where really how Jesus lived. He was the master of masters. And I'm so glad that we have the story of his life. People are always challenging and saying, well, what's true, what's not true? And I say, well, historically, Jesus was a person. There's too much history, too much attached to say he didn't exist. When I look at some of the things personally within that in the New Testament grid, I realize that there's many layers as well to the history of who he is and what he's portraying, and some of those are metaphorical. And we know that he spoke in parables. So there's a lot of layers. So I want to get you're sort of in my personal spiral on all these things, because I want to get the grid on how to be that person that lives in these things and more shall you do. I want to understand the person that says that. I want to understand why it was said, how it was said. I want to understand how it applies to me. And clearly that statement applies to all of us. But I am taking it really, really personally. So when I started, developing these messages on what is your grid, really answering that, it's just taking me a little more and deeper each time that I think about it. So last week we learned a little bit more and used the analogy of that story of the shaman who stood on the shore. If you're watching this for the first time and you don't know that story, you're going to have to go back and listen to it, because I'm not talking about it tonight. But the premise of it is that there was a shaman that stood on the shore who had not a clue, no perception of what a ship looked like, but he perceived that there was a ripple, that he perceived there was something he didn't know. And the whole tribe thought he was a little bit of a goof, but he stood his ground and kept looking and kept pressing in. And I sort of feel a little bit like that shaman at times, where I want to press in. I see some ripples happening. I see something, and I don't believe it's that I need to go study about the stars in the skies and extra, because right now I have an assignment in this body, in this spirit, to the universe. The universe doesn't have any responsibility to me. I need to know. I need to see what's happening on the water. So we talked about a perceptual grid is simply an internal structure that allows awareness to register something, right? It's not our belief, it's not our imagination, it's familiarity. What are we getting familiar with? We think of having a grid is sort of like installing a decoder in consciousness. Because the shaman that's standing looking at the ripples didn't invent a ship. He created the capacity to notice an anomaly, and that built his perceptual grid intentionally so he could begin to see. And once he saw, then he couldn't stop seeing. So he understood there was a spirit world that shaped the natural, where the people didn't understand that yet. People are still in the natural. This is our world, guys. This is our world right now. That we understand there's a spirit world beyond what we have even learned or been programmed to in our lives, even going through church culture and from a lot of us from the time we were a child. But we didn't necessarily understand the spirit world that is shaping us, and now we're learning that. And we're the shaman of our time. Like we're it. We live in those resurrection realities. And grids form through consistent exposure, not force. That's another thing we're learning. These things that we're learning that's into the spiritual realm is not because we've gone to read a book or gone to a conference or had hands laid on us or been prophesied over. It's something that we have seen a ripple of ourselves, something that God is speaking to us, speaking to you individually. And that starts to be developing. And because you give it attention, because you're not forcing it, you're giving it attention. So it's a consistent exposure to the same thing that now that ripple on the horizon starts to grow and starts to grow, and you see it for what it is clearer and clearer. That's how these grids are built. And these grids are built by repetition, they're not without expectation, but it's something that we do consistently. And that's why we keep talking about silence, about meditation, resting practices, things that we are learning. And that's part of how we're growing as well. And also we started talking about the transfer effect. And think about the day we're living. What would happen if a group of people like us, we're small in number, right? We're just a handful. But what if we agreed to live differently than the narrative of the world system? What if we lived from Christ consciousness? And what if we lived from what we're calling the infinite, the universal field of infinite possibilities? What if we lived from it? Even then we can't explain it. We don't even have a language to it. But here's what we're learning. We're learning that once we start getting a grid, when a grid stabilizes, it begins to work in others as well. And after we start, it's like even the language of talking to one another. We start normalizing a perception, and so we talk differently. But we talked differently 5 years ago, 1 year ago. And when that grid for those things that that are becoming normal to us, they begin to stabilize, and they stabilize in us physiologically as well. Our nervous system actually changes. And I think the reason behind that is because we're going after the silence, we're going after the peace, we're going after the unconditional love. And so we become those calm people that calm the chaos. We become the awakened who let the others feel like they are being felt, feel like they're being cared for. We're not trying to convince somebody. We're sure learning that. And we don't convince, we don't argue. But when we live what we know, we make seeing for others possible. Like the shaman. He saw the ship, and once he saw it, once he had that grid, the other people began to see. He didn't force anything. He didn't make somebody see it. It's just because the peace, the love, the chaos, it was what it was. And other people entrained to that. And as I looked, I said, talk to me about Jesus. How did he do it? Well, the core, the truth in that is he didn't do as much as he revealed what was there. And I just want to take a little bit tonight and look at it that way. Because we talked about direct knowing and about omnicognition, and we defined how that works in our life, and it's kind of an exciting process. and it's worthwhile meditating on because it opens up to everything that's possible, to infinity. And Jesus lived there. He lived from direct knowing continuously, not just occasionally, not like somebody walking around in a trance, because he sure isn't portrayed that way. He lived from direct knowing. His core perceptual grid came from what I am looking at. It came, number one, from his identity. He knew who he was. He'd never sought connection with God. He never preached connection with God. Isn't that sort of one of the most incredible things? I have been told, I'm going to stop saying we, because maybe you haven't. Maybe you haven't been coerced into coming into a conference or a meeting because God is there. Let's go seek God together. We had a language to it that really was saying that to us, to go and seek it. We go and look for something that already is. If we had learned it backwards, I'm just thinking how much different I'd be today than if I had that seeker mentality. There was even that word seeker was very, very common at one time. Jesus assumed unity. He knew his identity, and he knew how the system worked. He says, I and my Father are one. The Father who dwells in me does the works. This is not theology, okay? This is a perceptual orientation that he lived in. Most humans, and I know we've heard this in other ways, believe that we're a body having experiences, right? But Jesus perceived in our language today, I am awareness. If he was here today, he might even say, I am the quantum field of unlimited possibilities expressing through a body. How about that for a definition? This single shift changes what is perceivable. Jesus built and maintained his grid. He did it, and I know I'm repeating myself. Silence is the calibration. When you calibrate something, it's measured against a standard. The reason that silence was his calibration was that he knew the standard that he was measuring. Some of us are still trying to find that standard. We're trying to still figure out, is there even a God? But he knew the Father. He knew the standard. And so everything was calibrated to his grid of knowing that. He didn't have to figure anything out. And he did it in silence. He did it in a way that's just really being introduced to us differently. We're so used to noise and activity being a standard that we had to shift into this new understanding that silence that speaks, not the noise. It's hard to imagine that I'm using we, it's hard to imagine that I thought the noise and activity was where I would find God. Jesus repeatedly withdrew into the silence. He went to that solitary place and he prayed. And he didn't go from one prayer meeting to another. Did you notice that? If you've read through the New Testament or what Jesus did, he didn't go from one prayer meeting to another. He withdrew into silence, and then he calibrated. He knew, and then he lived it. And Timothy actually warns us. He said that there are those that are ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. And this is a part of a passage that describes people who appear godly but deny the power of God. And Paul warns Timothy about individuals who are forever seeking new teachings but fail to understand or accept the truth of who they are. These people are often described as heady, not heavy, they could be heavy, but heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. And a prayer in Jesus' model, he modeled attunement or atonement. He knew that there was an alignment into the one. Prayer was not asking. You know, when he went into the silence, where it says he left his disciples and he went into the secret place. I guarantee you, from what I'm learning now, he didn't go there with a list. He didn't go there asking for this, show me tomorrow so what he can do. I believe that aligning process, and I think is one of the things on my horizon, is how do you live knowing that there's a ripple out there, there's an alignment to something that I can't see yet, but rest in the silence so that it can come into view and be patient in the process. See, it's almost backwards from everything that I personally have understood. You know, the Olympics are on right now. I'm sure you all know. But nothing exemplifies these successful abilities than when you see that athlete that stands on the podium. It looks like a lot of noise and a lot of kerfuffle around them, and there is, of course, at times. But you know where they brought their sport into alignment was in their secret place, in their own self. It didn't matter if you're on a team or whether you're an individual sport. You still had a team around you of people. There was a lot of noise around you, but every one of those athletes that stand on the podium did their alignment in a secret place where they had to get it. They don't win because you had a good coach or a bunch of folk. You did some inner work. They did the meditation. They stood on that podium a long time before it really happened. It's the same in our life. Prayer, in this sense, is the attunement, being in tune. Prayer is quieting the mind and body so awareness can line with the source. That's why it's so difficult at times for me right now to pray out loud and in the old formats. Nothing is wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong. But the aligning is different. The awareness is quieter. The awareness is the attuning, the being in tune, the being in one becomes so sweet and so quiet that there aren't the same words anymore. You know, silence will dissolve fear. It cannot, when you align in silence, fear can't stay. What happens is a clarity comes in, and sometimes there's more to that, and there's instruction. But most of the time I'm finding when you come out of that place, it's knowing, but you don't know what you know until you take yourself back into into your life, whatever it is that you are doing, whether you're teaching hula or you're at home with your husband or raising children, or you've got an executive post somewhere. You'll flow naturally from that place and the silence, because you won't be out there in fear, and you'll be there clearer, and you won't have done it. It will be done with you because you've aligned. Jesus returned from those moments. He didn't have a lot of answers maybe for things, even though he taught. He taught all the time. But he seemed to come out of them with a knowing. And that's why his words carried authority. He spoke from alignment, not effort. And that's why athletes succeed. They're aligned with their purpose. They know what they know. And it's training, guys. It's training. Silence resets your nervous system. It'll reset the interference from your ego. And it will reset any emotional noise. Silence is our grid's maintenance program. It's where we align to our Christ consciousness, where we don't review the action. Like we don't ask someone else to do something. We don't go in and say, I want, Jesus, I need. In the silence you align. When you align, you have everything you want and you need. And you don't align in public like you do in private. In public, you live and are the example of what you've aligned with in the secret place. Jesus was neutrality under pressure. Remember we talked about neutrality, I think that was in the first part of this grid series. He refused emotional reactivity. When he was accused, he was calm. When he was threatened, he was calm. When he was praised, he was calm. When he was betrayed, he was calm. This neutrality preserved clarity. When we act from emotion, that is any frequency on the lower scale, and you guys know what I'm talking about, right? The frequency on the lower scale is shame and fear and anger, frustration. The ones that is really a negative. Is negative. You're not building forward, and it does not align with the universe. It does not align. And what it does as well, when you act from emotion on those lower scales, it collapses the desire of your intention. You cannot set an intention for what your desire is and live from the emotions on the lower scale. That's pretty tough sledding, but it's also a responsibility. But the cool thing is, it takes one decision not to do it and to live higher in that neutrality, in courage, in love, in peace, in joy. Same decision making. So think of the times you've prayed from desperation. I might be the only one that's ever done that. But when it happens, if you look behind the veil of what's going on to that field of possibilities, everything in there was always steadfast and possible. Nothing changes. Possibilities remained because we go into fear and shame and greed and all that, and those frequencies. The frequency required to resonate with possibility dissolves in those in the lower frequency. It's not about your faith or belief or anything. It's about your energy. It's about frequency. So this is why Jesus could say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. You know why he could say that? Because his heart was speaking love. When he said that, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do, this statement didn't come from moral and superiority or passivity. It came from consciousness. It came from a field level perception. He was seeing behavior as rising from conditioning, from fear, unconsciousness, rather than malice. We'd say, he was giving those guys a break. Forgive them, they don't know what they do. From that level, blame dissolves because there's no intent to take it personally. Father, forgive them. Why does it matter? Well, because in this unified field of consciousness, this field level perception allows response without reaction. Compassion becomes clarity, not sentiment. Forgiveness becomes accuracy, not a virtue. Jesus wasn't being better. He was aligning. He was in tune with unconditional love. He was seeing more. He was seeing the whole picture. He was taking away all of the noise, all of the stuff around it, so he could see through into the peace. Emotion collapses true perception. Strong emotion narrows awareness. Our brain moves from direct perception into interpretation. It becomes a story we tell ourselves. By that I mean, when we have a strong emotion to something and we make excuses for it, we change the story, right? It's called making excuses. If we make those stories or excuses about our own intent, or we blame something, or there's threat or whatever, once this happens, we no longer see what it is. We see what emotion tells us it means. And Jesus was never attached to the outcome. Jesus did not try to make miracles happen. Always thought he is the miracle worker. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that says it. But what he knew was alignment with the field. Therefore, he expected alignment to express itself naturally. Can you think about that? He wasn't working a miracle. He already knew the miracle. He knew it was there, and he expected, whenever he was faced with the need of that, he expected the alignment to be expressed. So you know what he did? He encouraged the people, and he said, your faith has made you well. According to your faith, be it done. He didn't heal. He removed the interference. He didn't try to make miracles happen. He operated from the assumption that the alignment, when we're aligned with something in its original intent, that it will naturally express itself as wholeness. He aligned himself with Father because he knew the original intent for somebody or for a situation. If he would just live from the assumption of the alignment, that it would naturally express itself. So when he says your faith made you well, or according to your faith be it done, he wasn't claiming personal power. He was pointing to a principle. When interference dissolves, coherence returns. I bet you were wondering when I was going to talk about coherence, right? In this view, healing's not an act imposed from the outside. It's the body, the mind, and the field returning to the natural order. Jesus did not heal people in the way we imagine, by effort or intervention. He removed what blocked the alignment. He removed the fear. He removed the unbelief. He removed the identity or the expectation of separation. And once the interference fell away, your faith has made you whole. The system did what it was designed to do. The miracle then is not a violation of natural law. It's natural law unobstructed. Because it was all made for us. It was all created for us to begin with. It's these what we call miracle is the natural law of how we are established in this earth. To this life is a better thing to say. Belief regulates physiology, and it does that by setting the body's intended state of being. In other words, It could be its predictive state. We don't even remember what our predictive state is. The brain, I was going to rest there for a while, but I'm going to go ahead because I'm going to answer what I think the questions are right now. Our brain is not a passive receiver of reality. It's a prediction engine. These are all new words, right? We're gonna get this somehow. What it expects, it prepares the body to express. That's why heart-brain coherence is so important and so profound. When our brain aligns with our heart, which is energized and synchronized with the universal field of possibilities, or we call it the field of consciousness, or the mind of Christ, whatever language you want to put to it. When we do that, because that's where our heart is energized, and when our heart aligns, then the brain activates to regulate our body's state of intended being, the one we were made with. Whatever it is you need, the miracle is already there. If you have belief that's rooted in fear of any kind, separation, helplessness, then the nervous system, it shifts into protection. So you know what it does? Raises your hormones, your stress hormones. It downregulates your immune function. It increases inflammation in your body. And the healing processes pause in favor of survival. It's called interference. Interference. In our house, when a referee blows a whistle, the play stops. The whole team pays attention. Your body is the whole team. Fear, separation, helplessness, shame, all the lower, it will interfere. When Jesus said, "Your faith will make you well," he was describing a shift in expectation. Faith here is not belief in him. Almost sounds blasphemous, doesn't it? But it's coherence within the person. And that's what Jesus brought to everything. He brought that coherence within the person. He unveiled that for them so that they could be in that place. And when the nervous system exits threat, the brain predicts safety. The body then is allowed to repair. Modern science observes this as the placebo effect, but it is not placebo. Placebo is not fake. It's our belief is removing resistance so the body's regulatory system can function. Jesus did not override biology. He allowed it. The more I'm studying that what Jesus did and how he did it, or what I'm seeing might be, his motives behind it. I'm just seeing it different. I'm seeing what he allowed, not what he did, because he partnered with us. He partnered all the time. He helped to dissolve fear, shame, identity level conflict. He removed the signals that kept the body in a defensive mode. And once interference dropped, physiology returned to balance. Everything, when it's in coherence, when the interference is cut through or muted, let's put it that way, tissues begin to repair. Pain perception decreases. Immune signaling is normalized. We know all this. We know it. It's called heart-brain coherence. According to your faith be it done is not magical thinking. It's accurate biology. The body expresses what the brain predicts is possible. Healing happens not because something is added, but when the system is finally allowed to do what it knows how to do. Jesus used direct knowing. He perceived before thinking. For instance, knowing the Samaritan woman's life. The man is not your husband, right? He's not reading a mind. He knew. He knew who would betray him. Judas, do what you need to do quickly. He knew when to leave town. He knew when there was danger. When it was, he just walked through their midst. Scripture repeatedly says he knew his thoughts, but reading thoughts is not mind reading. It's called non-local perception. This means that he was in tune with the universal field of consciousness. Let's call that field Father. All the time. He was in tune all the time, and he had access all the time to everything. I don't see him going in and out of it like we do. I could go into reasoning and logic for all the things that we have in 2026, that we go in and out of it because there's so many other temptations to entertainment and to other things that, you know, his life was very, very, very different. But the fact is, we have the same access. We have to bring consciousness to that fact, that we have the same access all the time to everything. Jesus perceived timelines, even though he didn't live from time the way we do so strictly. Like, it's time. He knew the times and the seasons. Jesus didn't wear a watch, but he knew. And that came from his direct knowing. That came from his complete oneness with Father. When he says, my hour has not yet come, he meant it was not yet time for his full mission to be revealed. When he talks about hours, it's not hours on a clock. He refers to the moment of his suffering, death, resurrection, the turning point, when his purpose would be completed. He was saying that everything unfolds according to divine timing, not human pressure. He was not moved at all by human pressure. He moved in alignment with the timing that he knew. He moved in alignment, waiting until the right moments for events to reach their fulfillment. They could not arrest him because why? His hour had not come. And there were times where his hours did come. A time came for the Son of Man to be glorified. John 13 says, Jesus knew his hour had come to depart this world. And then he said, Father, the hour has come. He was in agreement with that. I think there's a whole message in that, in that itself. I have a lot of questions. Can we know our hour to depart? Can we know and be in agreement? Jesus did. Jesus sensed when something was aligned, not just what. And this is omnicognition that's applied to timing. He acted only when coherence was present. He did not perform signs on demand. You know, it says a wicked generation seeks a sign. When Jesus said a wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, he wasn't criticizing curiosity. He was confronting something deeper. What he meant, what he meant and what others meant are two different things. The religious leaders, already seen healings and deliverance and wisdom, yet they demanded another dramatic sign from heaven. It wasn't honest inquiry. It was resistance disguised as skepticism. They wanted proof without trust. Wicked means a hardened heart. In biblical language, wickedness often means being closed, resistant or unwilling to respond to the truth already given. Wicked also is the word for wicker, where things are twisted. Called them an adulterous generation. Adulteress that word actually had nothing to do with sex outside of a marriage. In Jewish tradition, turning away from God toward power, status, or control was described as adultery. Jesus was saying, you're asking for signs while your allegiance is somewhere else. You're unfaithful. Seeking a sign can be avoidance. Instead of transferring their hearts, they kept asking for spectacle. Miracles had become entertainment, not invitation. Sadly, we still see some of that. In the deeper points, Jesus says only the sign given would be the sign of Noah. And just as Jonah was 3 days in the fish, Jesus was pointing toward his death and resurrection. In simple terms, a wicked generation seeks signs means people who are unwilling to trust or change keep demanding more proof while ignoring the truth already that's in front of them. It's not wrong to ask for understanding, but when your heart is closed, no sign will ever be enough. And why is that? We dealt with that last week. Because perception collapses when ego seeks proof. Miracles require coherence, not performance. Jesus spoke in parables. Parables do not give information. You know what they do? They install grids. To those who have eyes to see, back to the shaman on the beach, he knew there was something to see. He perceived. The perception was not sight, but it was knowing. Parables bypass the intellect that speak to the heart of those who are aligned with the field. Jesus was training perception, not belief. Walking on water, transportation, invisibility, these events only make sense if perception precedes the event. When Jesus was walking on water, Jesus remained coherent. Peter lost coherence through fear. Fear collapsed the field and density returned. Where he was walking above the frequency that we know as natural, fear came in and it collapsed the field. There's a lot of small little keys here that are worth taking personally. I'm taking them very personally. For those of you who might be listening and don't know, we had this course in a book that Kim Whitman and I wrote called The What If Chronicles. And one of my what if challenges was on doubt. And when I studied through that, doubt actually means, sorry, I'm taking off a bracelet here. Doubt isn't a lack of action. It actually means when Jesus said, Peter, why did you doubt? I'm not going to go through the whole lesson, but actually he was saying, why didn't you just keep on going? Why'd you let fear in? When you had that, when fear comes on something, you don't have to act on it. You can, as sometimes we'll say, put your big girl pants on and go forward. We can do that because if we let fear in, it collapses the field that we're walking in that is superimposed to a greater level so you can walk on water. And that density of what we see or we think is normal comes back. So doubt, if you feel like you're doubting something, it just means it's a lack of action. Passing through crowds, appearing suddenly. They tried to seize him, but he walked through their midst. You know what this reflects? He lived in an altered field of coherence. He stayed in his own field of knowing. When we engage, when we take seriously the fact that we understand how we can bring that heart-brain coherence that actually has us living in our own field of knowing, we start altering things. When we resonate with hostility, we become hostile ourselves. You know that? That's why Jesus didn't meet the people that were coming at him with resistance, with hostility, because he was too busy resonating with the field of possibility that for him to relate to hostility, he had to leave that field of possibility, and then it would have collapsed on him. Am I making any sense? Okay. Because I'm seeing it play out in my mind. My words don't seem to be following it. When there's people that come at you with a hostile intention, can you stand there in calmness, not reacting? Rather, because it's so easy to want to fight back, or we fight back in different ways, right? Speak out, aim for the purpose of hurt. When we do that, we collapse the field. When Jesus was walking through crowds and appearing and appearing and disappearing, and the things that he did that because he resonated all the time with the field of possibilities. Let me just remind us what the word resonate means. It means to become like. When you've got a musical instrument, say a guitar, you pull one string, it has a certain sound, certain frequency, a certain energy. If there's another guitar in the room, that string is plucked, it will resonate on another guitar across the room of the same note as the one that was pulled. Science is also telling us that that field of resonating can be infinite. It's not just a few feet or it's not measured. And when we resonate, when we go into that place in the silence where we resonate with the unified field of possibility, then we stay there. Whatever it is, any possibility is resonating with us at that time. Okay, Helen, you can do better on this one. Okay. Why did Jesus say, greater things, greater works than these can you do? This is really the most important part. He didn't say, only I can, only God can, only if you worship me. He said, the kingdom is within you, and this perceptual field of unity is in you. This unified field of possibility is in you. Christ consciousness is in you. We're really without excuse. What blocks us is fear, attachment, identity with ego, emotional reactivity, seeking signs. He didn't remove these, these for people. And that's why the Bible says you have to tear down a stronghold. If any of these areas in your life, fear, attachment, ego, emotional reactivity, any of these signs, if you've built a wall around them and you have made excuses for them, well, I'm angry, I'm Irish, I, you know, I'm this way because that's how my father was. I'm this way because you start building a wall around you, give yourself excuses to stay in it. And the Bible says you have to tear those things down. You can't cast them out. They're not demonic. We actually build those and they become a part of our character. So it's really, really important to expose things. And Jesus didn't remove these from people. He made them aware of it. And when they said, yeah, I believe, it revealed the miracle they needed. And he modeled life, right? He lived from unity, not separation. He maintained silence and neutrality. He trusted direct knowing over thought. He acted only when he was aligned. He taught perception, not what to believe. He embodied coherence continually. He didn't pursue, he lived what he knew. He removed what blocked it. And why does this matter to us? What Jesus demonstrated is not religious, not supernatural, it's not unreachable, it's human consciousness fully aligned. And that is exactly what we've been circling with: omnicognition, direct knowing, non-local awareness, neutrality, perceptual grids, all that grid stuff. I sincerely hope that we do get a grid on things, that we can be that person that sees the ripple on the horizon and has the patience of waiting to see it develop and become and have understanding to it. So when something brings form, we can help others see the form. And when we can live in that, then others will be entrained. You know what? It's a bit of work, but it starts in coherence, doesn't it? It starts when our heart and brain align. We know that doesn't take a lot. It takes faithfulness to do it, but that's what we're called to. Anyway, I thought tonight that we would maybe just end this time with 5 minutes of just silence. And I'm going to put some music on and just sort of take a deep breath. I don't know if some of you feel like you've been drinking out of a fire hose these last few weeks, but I am hoping that what I've been sharing will bring unity, understanding, challenge to live like in Christ consciousness. We have that beautiful example of how Jesus lived it and taught it, and now it's our turn to be it and to do these things and greater, because I believe we're it, girl. I really believe we're it. So let's take this time and just go into the silence. Take a deep breath, and it's not going to be guided. I'll just put some music on, and then I'll see you back in the Hollywood Squares.